Welcome, everybody, back to another fantastic edition of the show. We appreciate you for tuning in. You could be listening to a whole lot, watching a whole lot, but you are here with talent and time.
Thank you.
And for that, we just want to say thank you, man. If you hear something fantastic today, and I'm pretty sure that you will, make sure that you share this episode with your people. Put it on your IG stories, tag us at His and Her Money. Let us know that you are listening and that you enjoyed the content, and we'll show you love right back. We love it when people show the show love. So please do so on any social media platform. Our handle is at His and Her Money. You guys know that we talk to you all. Everything that we create here is around one statement: take dominion over your money and your life. Today, we're going to be talking about life, because a lot of us and a lot of us got kids, got children running around, and life can feel hectic.
No matter the age.
Life can feel just like a non-ending sprint. Sometimes because you're dealing with career or business and family and ministry and yourself. And so we're going to help you with that area a little bit today with today's conversation and today's guest. We're going to be talking with Justin Whitmel Earley, and he has written a fantastic new book called Habits of the Household.
I love that name.
Why?
When I saw that name, it was like, it spoke to me, Habits of the Household. Like, I'm all about the house, and I'm all about having habits, and I'm all about the entire family helping with the household.
Oh,
so,
Sookie. We're going to open up a can of worms already. The interview hasn't even started. So guys, get your notes, get your note-taking apps, whatever you use, because I'm sure that you're going to get a lot of gems today from our guests, and we don't want you to forget them. So get ready to write, get ready to learn, get ready to grow. Let's get Justin on so we can hear his advice on this topic. Hey, Justin, welcome to the His and Her Money Show.
Hey, Justin.
Hey, Talent. Hey, Ty. How are you all?
We're great. We're excited to have you on because, man, you dropped some major game in your brand new book that I know is going to help a whole lot of folks out. And so we knew we had to get you on because our people need to learn what you are teaching. But some people are being introduced to you for the very first time right here and right now. So can you say hi to them and let them know what you are all about?
Yeah. Hey, everybody on His and Her Money, all listeners. I'm really, really honored to be invited here. So I am a corporate lawyer, fancy way of saying I'm a business lawyer, but I'm also a dad of 4 boys, husband to my wife, Lauren, and I write and speak on the side. And this recent book, all of my books so far are about habits. And this recent one is about getting in the house and talking about habits of the household. So business lawyer and a part-time writer, and I love doing both.
So since you have a series of books on habits, why are habits important to us to be able to understand, implement, and learn from?
Yes, habits will make or break your life. And I know that because they broke my life before they made my life. So my first book is about my own story of transitioning from being a missionary overseas to being a lawyer. And somewhere in that transition, I assimilated all the typical habits of a top law school student and an aspiring corporate lawyer. And I worked myself into an awful anxiety crash where my life really fell apart. And I was, taking medication and drinking unhealthily just to fall asleep at night. But I was still a follower of Jesus in my head. But my habits had grown so far from what my heart and my head believed that I think eventually they just took my life down with it. And that was when I realized that your life is a product of your habits as much as it is a product of your head and your hopes and your heart. So my walk with God since has been trying to unite those things and write and talk and tell anyone and everyone I can that the smallest patterns of our days and week actually affect our souls, our families, the people around us in the most extraordinary ways. So your habits matter. And that's why I can't stop talking about them.
Man, you're going to have me literally go look up your other books because I'm a person, I love topics like that, habits, discipline, all of that stuff. And this particular book is talking about habits of the household. So are you just speaking to people that have children, or does it matter what the dynamic of your household consists of? That's question number one. And then question number two, is it important that you get your own self individual? So, okay, I'm a mom, I'm a wife. Is it important that I gain habits individually before I can really implement them into my children or even into my relationship?
Oh man, you're setting it up here, Ty, because so my first book was about, and if anybody can look on the screen, I'll just hold it up. So my first book was about kind of personal habits. And it was about, taking the ways you use technology, the ways that your schedule is, the ways that you eat with other people, the way that you rest or don't rest, wake and look at your phone, all that stuff, and think about how are these little habits of technology and busyness changing who I am inside, and how can they make me more like Christ? How can I actually adjust my habits to be a better lover of God and neighbor? And then it was as I was writing and speaking and working on this that I started to really kind of look around. I had 4 boys at the time, and I had written and convinced a lot of people that we become our habits. We become a version of our habits. But then I sort of looked at my house and I realized my boys are becoming a version of me. So if I become my habits and my boys become me, then my habits matter a lot to the household. And that's where I really started thinking about how to actually apply these principles. See, I'm slow. I pick it up slowly, but I started to think about how to apply these principles within the house to my family. And that's the journey of the second book, Habits of the Household, which is really about parenting and kids and applying the habits in that realm.
So you open up the book with the story of how something called Bedtime Liturgy. Talk about that and how it actually pretty much opened up this book, and for you to be able to discuss more about habits of the household, the importance of it. So discuss, what is that?
Yeah, most of my books come out of crisis moments. And anybody with kids knows that most bedtimes are a crisis moment. so I'm putting
Yes,
my
they keep
boys
pushing
down.
back the time.
That's right.
I'm like, get in the bed.
Yeah. I'm putting my boys down one night a few years ago, and our bedtimes are filled with all the stuff that you might imagine. Like bathwater is on the floor, board books are being thrown. I'm breaking up wrestling matches everywhere. And more often than not, I become this sort of, impotent general who's screaming commands, but nobody's listening, no matter how loud I get. So I'm embarrassed. They're embarrassed. I finally get, to get them all in bed. And, then I try to give them a bedtime prayer and say I love them. But there's a dissonance, right? Because I was just threatening great bodily harm if they didn't get their PJs on. And I remember taking note of this particular night and thinking the obvious. And just one night it hits me. It's like, this is normal. This is our regular routine, me popping off and them, and I was confessing all this to one of my pastors, who told me about a bedtime liturgy he does with his sons. Right now, there's a fancy word right there, bedtime liturgy. So I was like, what's this about? I'll try it. I'm desperate for anything to help. So here's what I do. I write my own, and I'm going to explain this term in a minute, but I write my own bedtime liturgy for my sons a couple nights later. And here's how it goes. I ask them a series of questions, and then they say yes back until the last question, which is sort of the obvious Sunday school answer. But here's how it goes in brief. I look at them and I say, can you see my eyes? They say yes. I say, can you see that I see your eyes? And they say yes. Then I say, do you know that I love you? They say yes. And I say, do you know that I love you no matter what good things you do? And they say yes. And then I say, you know that I love you no matter what bad things you do? And they say yes. And then I end with, who else loves you like that? And they say, God does. Now, you can imagine how well this went the first night. It did not. They suddenly thought it was very strange that I was asking about their eyes. They took it as an invitation to poke my eyes. They were confused about what they should say. I forgot what I was going to ask, but I had done enough research and studying and practice of habits by that time to know that, nothing is a habit until it is. Every new routine feels weird because it's not a routine yet. So we kept trying a few days, and I'll never forget, maybe about like the second week into this, on a night that was otherwise exactly like the first night. Bathwater still on the floor, lots of wrestling matches. I'm still struggling with my temper. But one of my boys is lying in bed and he says, "Hey, can we have our bedtime blessing now?" And we shared, this meaningful exchange of God's unconditional love for us, no matter what good things we do, no matter what good parenting habits I have, and no matter what bad things we do, no matter what bad habits I have. And what made that night so different was that moment that we were now habitually drawn to became the anchor moment for me. And that's when I realized the power of a good parenting habit, because the circumstances were not different. But my expectations over that week and a half became really different because I was driving towards a different kind of moment, literally by habit. And that opened my eyes up to the idea of patterns that we could call liturgies in the house, that they take us somewhere. They take us towards frustration or rush or patience or love. And the power of a good parenting habit is it interrupts your otherwise problematic instincts and puts you on a new path. And that's, once I got hooked on that, I thought, all right, how can I start looking for these everywhere? And habits are everywhere.
So let's talk about that, because I think when you hear the word habit, you might think of something like nail biting, or I tap my leg, or I like the labels in a certain way. But habits are way deeper than that. Like there, you talked about, some habits are subconscious, and no matter if we acknowledge a habit or if we are subconsciously doing habitual things, our kids are learning from all of that, right?
Absolutely. So one of the words I mentioned earlier was seeing habits as liturgies. And liturgies is, one of those fancy words for a pattern of worship, usually associated with high and formal churches. But the point that I try to get across when I use the word liturgy is to suggest that the routines that we don't think are spiritual are more spiritual than we think. So anybody might talk about their morning cup of coffee as a habit, right? And anybody might talk about their morning quiet time as a habit. But I argue that the way we look at our phone in the morning, for example, whether we go to it first thing when we wake up or whether we go to something else, there's a habit that is more spiritual than you think. And people would think, oh, the cup of coffee, not spiritual. Bible, yes, spiritual. Phone, where's that? And what I argue is that we actually really engage in real patterns of worship when we're looking to our phone first thing every morning to see how we feel about the day, or to see what we should believe about the world today, or to see, and this is my struggle, like check my inbox to see what I need to accomplish today so that I can feel justified about my existence today, which is way different than thinking God made me, he loves me, he's got me. I can feel good about today, and I can approach the world in that. So what I try to convince people of is that your habits are more spiritual than you think. So in your family, your habits of meal times, the way you wake up, the way you discipline, the way you do or don't pray together, the way you do or don't read together, these things are extraordinary spiritual patterns hidden in ordinary and mundane moments. And my greatest hope is that we'd be the kind of parents that would say, all of this matters. And actually, the little stuff might matter the most.
Yeah. So you talked about phones, and you're absolutely right. It does. It becomes a habit. Looking at the calendar, what do we have to do today before I jump into it, or looking at the inbox and all of that stuff. Our children, when I say our children, I'm talking about the children of society now, of the world. Screen time is a big issue. Everybody wants to be on their tablets. Now some kids have phones and or game systems and things like that. You talked about in the book something that you and your wife implemented for your children in regards to their watch time and making sure they have good habits or good choices when watching. So talk about that.
Yeah. So anybody listening right now is listening on a device and they're watching us on a screen, and you know that screens are changing the world, right? Now, I want to make clear at least two things. One, I use screens all day, every day. I am no Luddite. I think technology can have wonderful, redemptive, and godly uses. But I will say, precisely because screens are so important, like anything else that's really important, money, sex, power, it can get really good or really bad. It can really harm us, or it can be really God glorifying. And I would put technology and screens in that category. These things matter a lot, so we got to use them really, really carefully. So what my wife and I think about a lot is the way that screens inform us. And a lot of this is the stories that we're engaging with, the videos we're watching, the podcasts we're listening to, the shows we're watching. And so what I want to urge parents to is to think a little bit less about how many hours is the right hours for our screen time rhythms, but rather to think about curating your screen time rhythms well. And that just means choosing carefully. And anybody knows you can't pick carefully unless there's a limit, right? So we got to talk about limits. If you're just going to watch anything all the time and Netflix or Google or YouTube is going to choose what you watch for you, then you're being parented by Netflix and Google or whatever. And that's probably not a great choice for your kids. But a good parent will say, any good parent knows the value of limits, right? Like at some point, it's too much chocolate. Or at some point, you got to go to sleep. And a good parent will say, hey, at some point, we got to turn off the screens. So I encourage families to pick their limits, but I also really encourage them to choose well within those limits and pick great stories that teach us about the world in God-honoring ways, that teach us about who we are, that teach us the right kind of heroes, that teach us the right way to talk and act and treat each other. So I can go into like some of those limits and some of those choices if you want, but that's the broad outline.
Yeah, no, go in, because I think this is something that a lot of parents struggle with, or they need help.
Forefront of people's minds.
Exactly. So for sure.
Yeah. Okay. Well, for us, picking limits, I tell people that rhythms are a lot more important than rules. Okay. I'll say that again. Rhythms are a lot more important than rules on the subject of habits. It is a lot better to say, for example, as a habit, I'm going to go to scripture before phone every morning. That's what I want my default posture to the day to be. I want to engage with God in some meditation and prayer before I go to my phone. It's a lot better to do that than it is to say, I refuse to use my phone before 8 a.m. Just because positive engagement in things creates patterns that we actually go back to. And so with screen times, I often tell parents to think about your rhythms more than setting rules. So some of our family rhythms, for example, are on Tuesday afternoons, the boys are allowed to watch shows after school, which by nature means other afternoons, they're doing something else. They're playing or they're doing homework. They're going outside. On Friday nights, we have family movie night, which is awesome. And we love it. Right now, we're going through all the Marvel movies together. So much fun with 4 boys. And my wife loves it too. But that by nature means that other nights, we're not watching something, because these are our rhythms of engagement. So lots of times the request after dinner, hey, can we watch a movie tonight? I'll say, well, is it Friday? And they'll say, no, it's Wednesday. I was like, well, what do we do on Wednesday? And kids are attuned to rhythms. Like, yes, they are always going to ask you for more ice cream, more chocolate, more shows and everything, but they're also attuned to rhythms. And instead of just saying, no, we can say, is it one of those times that we do that? Because we do that as a family lots of times. Every Sunday, they watch a cousin movie with their cousins as we do Sunday family lunch. We've established, we used to just, if the kids were crying in the car, and y'all know this, right? You take a phone, you just like throw it backwards, like here, turn to something, like quiet down. And that was a pattern of our parenting for a long time. And then we decided, you know what? Cars are a great place for conversation, especially as your kids get older. So what if our decision was just cars are for conversation? And, on long trips, we do the DVD player thing, or, we put a show on for them, but those are long special trips and they know that. So and those are just some of our rhythms right there, right? Where we do try to engage on purpose with great stories and great games and movies together. But most of the week we're not. Most of the week we're talking. Most of the week we're playing outside. Most of the week we're at the dinner table and those kind of things. And every family's going to have different rhythms of engagement. That's fine. But I just want to encourage parents to be brave enough to say, you're the parent. You got to set some limits. Pick wise rhythms. Help them choose great content. And that's probably one of the most important things you're ever going to teach your kid, how to use technology well.
Yeah.
So another big topic is discipline when it comes to parenting. So, a lot of times discipline is random, right? Or it's based on the situation at hand. You talked about a lot of parenting is crisis management. So how do you develop habits for the category of disciplining our children, and how can habits help us in that area?
Man, and I need the help, because here I am, right? I'm smiling. I look probably, like a nice guy. I can get so mad at home, and I can get so mad at my kids. I'm not kidding. Like if I have 4 boys, so I might have a somewhat unique situation. They're aged right now between 9 and 2. Or actually, he just turned 3. So 9, 7, 4, and 3. We had a span last month. Within 3 weeks, there were 2 windows broken. It's just like, and I'll just go crazy. I'm like, you're breaking everything I have. So here's the point. If you're like me, and I'm guessing that most people are, the thing about our instincts and our habits and discipline is usually they are all wrong. So my instinct is almost always get mad and try to control this situation to get the family back to what we were trying to do in the first place, right? Because discipline never happens when it's convenient. It's always when you're on the way to some trip you thought was going to be fun, or when you're supposed to be doing the get out of school, get to school routine in the morning. And so what I tried to think about was what I said earlier, the power of habits to take the otherwise normal circumstances and take us somewhere else other than our usual instincts. And for me, that's anger and control. And so I try to reframe discipline not as a way to control your children's behavior, but as a way to disciple their hearts towards loving the right things, namely God and other people. Because all of these discipline problems are not about, should you or should you have not put your hands on that toy or that boy or something else. It's all about, do I love other people? Do I know how to sacrifice? Do I know how to share? Do I know how to honor God and other people? And that's a question of our loves. And so this is sounding really abstract at first, right? But for me, little habits actually make a difference in those patterns. So one of the first habits I talk about is a habit of a pause before you discipline. So one of the things that I try to do, if I hear a fight breaking out upstairs over something, I'll try to, on the way up the stairs, just pause in my head. And instead of mumbling, I cannot believe they're doing this again. I just talked to them about this. Instead of going through that narrative, I'll say, Lord, I too am a forgetful and selfish person who wants my stuff and my way. Help me to be as gracious and truthful with them as you are to me. Because I'm realizing, and that helps me, it really does, a small habit, but it can become instinctual. You're just praying on the way to that moment. But it reminds you that you're a lot more like your kids than you're not. I mean, we're much more like them than not, right? And what do we need in those moments? We need a father who is gentle but firm with us, who is kind and forgiving, and yet will save us from ourselves as well. And that's the story of Jesus in the Bible. He saves us from ourselves. And so that's just one of the habits. Another one is, and I'll end with this one so you guys can ask any more questions on this. In our family, we have a habit. We always try to end all these moments with some little act of reconciliation. So if it's with a little kid, my goal is to say, all right, I had to stop you from, I don't know, stealing the chocolate syrup from the refrigerator. But if I can't tickle you and get you to laugh at the end of this moment, then I've probably either been too harsh or I've gotten too angry. Like if I don't want to try, then I'm too mad at you and that's my problem. Or if I can't get you to laugh, that means I was too harsh on you. And again, that's my problem. So for a little one, it might look like that. But with my older son, we had a thing this Saturday morning actually that, and he just went upstairs to sulk afterwards. And I thought, this discipline moment's not done because he's still sulking. So clearly I have not shown him that he's reinstated and that he's okay and that I love him no matter what good and bad things that he does, just like God does. So I just had to go up and talk to him for a while longer and just say, hey man, yeah, you did something wrong, but look, I'm here. I want to hang out with you. It's Saturday morning. Let's go back downstairs. And that, to me, that's a act of reconciliation. So that's a habit of reconciliation that I think is really important in discipline moments.
Yeah, that's good. Talk about, so habits, they don't have to be daily with your children. You can incorporate habits based off just, for example, like birthdays. So talk about how you guys are very intentional about creating habits around your children's yearly birthday.
Oh yeah, that's one of my favorite things. And here I think a lot about the rhythms of how we find and talk to our children, because one of the big things in this book is, I think parenting rightly means that you're parenting towards friendship in the end. One of the greatest pleasures of my life is that I feel now still like a son of my mother and father, but also like a friend to my mother and father. I mean, we hang out together, we rely on each other, we work together. And so I think about, what does it look like to, over time, make friends out of family, for them and for us. And so one of our birthday rhythms is, I take them out to a pancake breakfast, just them, because in any family, but especially in a little bigger family, it's hard to get that one-on-one time with your parent. There's always somebody else around competing for attention and messing something up while you're trying to have a special moment. So I like on birthdays, and to look for other times throughout the years and weeks where we just get some one-on-one time together. And so we'll go out for a pancake breakfast, and I will ask them questions about their life. And for, the little ones, this might be like, what's your favorite color? Tell me what your favorite animal is again. For the older ones, it's like, who's your best friend now? What are you feeling scared of when you go to school? What do you think about before you fall asleep? And that whole thing is just to try to find them, to try to get to know them, see who they are, and let them know that they have a father and a mother who are interested in who they are and who they're becoming. And then I take what I learned on that morning and I write them a letter, but not a letter to a 9-year-old. I write a letter to their future self and say, here's what you were talking about then. Here's what you were thinking about. And so someday I'll give them these letters. But for me, these are just ways to incorporate rhythms of conversation as friendship into our parenting routines. I love that you asked about that one, though.
So that's, a fantastic example of how these routines have brought you and your family closer together. I'm curious, how has putting this type of structure into the family brought you closer to God, and maybe even brought them closer to God?
That's the center of it all right there. And I think it's different for both of us, but I will say for me, one of the things that these habits do for me is they create a spiritual center of gravity in the house. Because some of our rhythms are like morning prayer together that we do before we leave for school, or this nighttime bedtime blessing, and it's a way for me as a father and fathers out there, particularly, if you're like me, you're probably more prone to sort of silence and absence when things get hard. I find that a lot of dads, when you're stressed or when there's conflict, you just would rather check out. And these are routines that just keep me spiritually checked in with my kids. Like, we're going to pray together at least twice a day, once in the morning before we leave for school and once in the evening before they go to bed. This is for the older kids too. Like, we all do it. And, sometimes it's rote, or, it's a routine and we're saying the same thing, but we're still praying together. I mean, Jesus said, hey, use this Lord's Prayer and pray it a lot, so I don't think God or Jesus is opposed to having a routine of prayer. I actually think it continually opens us up spiritually to each other. So it really helps me to lean into the spirituality of fathering, which I think is so important. So that makes me feel, and I find God in that, and I find him present with me and helping me there. And then for them, there's just that, and this is the part I love about being a dad. It's scary, but I love it. We're teaching them who God is for the first time. We're teaching them what his world is, why it's amazing, what's worth doing in it, how to go about it. And I just get sometimes overwhelmed with the excitement and the privilege it is to introduce them to the world that God created, and how, to work on your tagline, and how to have dominion over it in a good and God-honoring way. There's so much to teach them. And so this is, family devotions and praying with them, but I definitely feel a lot of pleasure in using these habits to habitually and daily and just bring them closer and closer to knowing the God that made them and made the beautiful world that they live in.
So you also, in your book, you talk about work inside of the home and outside of the home. God created us to work. And so the importance of teaching your children how to participate in household duties in and out of the home. Talk about why that's important, why parents should really consider that. Because I do know that there are some extremes, some homes where parents do completely everything and just let their kids sit on games all day, and other homes where the parents literally make their kids do everything. So talk about the importance of a rhythm in that area.
Yes. I'm by now the listeners are probably like, wait, how many subjects are in this book? But so if you got no flavor for it, the 10 chapters of this book are just like 10 places of the day. It's like waking, bedtime, meal times, moments of discipline, screen time. So just so you know, that's how the book progresses. But yeah, so I love what I do, right? I'm a corporate lawyer. it's hard enough for an adult to understand what I do. Somebody says, so what do you do? Like, well, I write contracts and negotiate them. And they're typically about like the starting a business or funding a business or selling a business, hard enough for an adult to understand. You can imagine my son's over and over like, huh? Why you grab that briefcase every day? Like, where are you going? What are you doing? And this happens, I think with moms and dads, regardless of who's actually the primary income earner or whatever, when we're on our computers and our phones, they don't know what we're doing, right? So like there's this whole world of work, and we know that work will make or break you, right? Like if you have great work and you're earning good income and you love it and you feel like you're contributing to the world, that we are the happiest person in the world. And when it doesn't fit right, or we're struggling with finances, or you don't have a job, like mom and dad are not okay, right? So there's this huge area of what it means to be human, work, that often kids do not get to see or understand unless we specifically invite them in. And that's the goal of the habits of work that I talk about. It's ways to say to your children early on, so they don't have to figure this out when they're 25 and like, oh man, I never thought about this, that I actually got to get a job, and it's not just for money. It's actually for my dignity and self-worth and my service to the world. I want to teach my boys young that work matters to God a lot, that he cares about what you do, that it can all be done for the love of neighbor. And that, by the way, it's hard. It takes a lot of time. It makes you tired, but it also satisfies you. Those are good things. And so, we have habits of, the ways that I talk to them about work, or inviting them to my office sometimes, but also, as you said, Ty, and this was important, teaching them how to work around the house, because anybody who's got a house knows it's a lot of work to make a family dinner. If you're going to do that, it's a lot of work to make a bed and clean the sink and keep the toilet clean. And living together in a way that creates community takes communal service, and it's work. And so I think about that my boys roll their eyes, don't get me wrong, but I think about that as service, an invitation. Hey, you're invited into this project of the household. You get to clean up too. And they're like, do we have to? And I'm like, you get to. You're invited into this whole family dinner thing. You ate and you can help clean. But of course there's a balance, like they're little and they're learning, and they break dishes as much as they clean them. But I just think one of the most important things we will teach our children is the spiritual gift that good work is, and how to do it and work hard at it. That's a great thing, and nobody else is going to teach them that. So we got to.
Thanks.
One of the things that we do, and we might do a separate podcast episode on this now that I think about it, because I don't think we've ever shared this. One of the things that we do in our household at least once a year, sometimes we do it a good 2 times a year, because sometimes when everything kind of gets hectic, you kind of got to bring a little bit of realignment or rebalancing in the family. But we sit down and we literally make a day where the kids know it's already on the calendar. We might order pizza. So we do a little bit of fun prior to this meeting, but then we all come together and have this family meeting. Mm-hmm. And dad usually opens up with scripture, prayer, and then we really relay the foundation. We talk about the importance of family. We talk about the importance of teamwork. We talk about the importance of how we all work together. You see, mommy and daddy, we're working, right, to provide for the household. You all have duties as well too. And then we open it up for questions and comments, and the kids ask questions. I mean, our youngest one, she was probably, when we started doing this, she's 8 now. She was probably 5, maybe. Mm-hmm. Yeah, about 5 or 6. And even she had little questions to ask. I almost feel sorry for the babies of the family, because now they have to do a lot of the work, where the older ones didn't have to do work at that age or whatever. But we bring the entire family. We really make it a fun thing. It's not like something that, oh gosh, we got to sit down and have this family meeting, but we talk about what we're building together as a family. And it's important to us that we cast vision for our family, and that our children see the vision of the McNeely household. So therefore they do want to be a part. Now you understand why mommy and daddy said, okay, clean the kitchen, or maybe they're doing their part to be able to help us as well too, as an entire family. So yeah, we might do a separate episode on that, talk about how it looks. What are some of the topics we talk about? But I think that it's so important that you involve your children, you all, into your lives and creating habits. It's to the point where Tyler to tell me, you can't be mad at them. You created this system. That's like it. They know times when snacks, when they were 1 and 2, we were creating habits, and children will keep you as parents on task. They will keep you on task. If you create those habits, they're going to remind you, right? And so it's important that we all do it together as a family.
And we don't have to figure this out on our own, because you did a great job unpacking these things in
Yes.
your
Grab
new
his
book, Habits of the Household. So let everybody know a little bit more about what they will find inside the pages of your new book and where they can pick up their copy.
Absolutely, man. Hey, by the way, I'm gonna tune in for that episode when y'all talk about that, Ty, because that is just gold. And I'll say, and this might be, a good closing comment. The way that you all should talk about, if you don't steward your finances, then they just go out chaotically. If you don't plan what you spend, if you don't budget, if you're not careful about this stuff, I think of time as the currency of purpose. And so just the way we think, if we don't have a budget for the way we use our money, we're not going to steward it and spend it well. We're not going to have dominion over it. If we don't think of our time with our kids and with each other and ourselves, we don't think our time is, that's the money we get to spend. And the funny thing is we all get the same amount every day. We all have the exact same number of hours, but the days in the year, and picking a day like that to spend with your kids is just such a wonderful use of the currency of your purpose. So I just love that you said that. Now I'm actually going to answer your question. You can find my book anywhere you can find books. You can go on Amazon or any other book retailer, and you can find more information about it and the chapters in it, everything from waking to bedtime and work and playtime. I even talk about marriage in the middle of the book. Had to put a chapter on marriage, because if you're not working on your habits of marriage, then you're not working on the whole project of the family, because kids are watching. They're watching how we love each other or how we don't. They're watching whether we forgive each other after we have fights. Not whether we have fights, when we have fights. They're watching, right? So all those chapters are in there. You can go to habitsofthehousehold.com to check it out, or you can find me at Justin Whitmel Earley or justinwhitmelearley.com. And I'm sure my spelling of my weird middle name will be in the show notes so they can find it there. But I would just love people to come out and find it, talk to me, email me, find me on Instagram, message me. I'll respond.
What I love is our His and Her Money Pro members are watching this live. If you're not a pro member, you need to be. Go to hisandhermoneypro.com. But we also have singles over there, because it's not a couple thing or a single thing. It's anybody that wants to get better in the area of their finances, their life, their relationships. And someone left a comment. I thought this was nice. She said, I definitely want to snag this book and gift some families with a copy as well for Christmas. So she doesn't have children of her own. She's currently not married, but she wants to be able to gift this book to others, because she really found value in this particular episode. So if you're watching this, if you're listening to this and you're like, well, I don't have a family yet, grab a copy and save it for when that time comes. But definitely gift this book to somebody else. Help these families out there, because so many families, they're looking for answers. A lot of them are stressed. Mm-hmm. They don't know what to do. They're really trying to do the best that they can. They don't like yelling at their kids. They don't like having chaos and disorder around the house and things like that. They want to be able to teach their kids and train their children God's way. So I believe that this book will bless so many people. So make sure that you check the show notes, get the links. If you're watching this on YouTube, click the link in the description box and check out the show notes and grab this book.
So Justin, we just want to say thank you, man. You took some time. You dropped mad jewels that a lot of people are going to be able to take and apply to their life. And those that are super serious are going to go out and get the book and be able to dive even deeper into this subject matter. But we just appreciate you taking time out of your schedule to share this with us today.
I'm so grateful both of you asked. Fun conversation. Appreciate y'all.
Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Another fantastic episode is in the books. I hope you took good notes, because this is serious, right? Taking dominion over your money and your life, a big component of that is your household, because if you're waking up into chaos and you're operating in chaos, there's no room for taking dominion.
That's right.
So it's important that you develop habits and routines and rhythms that are conducive for you to be able to take dominion over your money and your life. And a good resource to help you do that is Justin's new book, Habits of the Household. It is linked up. Get your copy and get to work.
Yes, I want to check out his other book as well.
Yeah, we'll have that linked in the show notes as well.
If you're that single or not family, that's the one for you, The Common Rule.
Yeah.
And give us the name of that one.
It's called The Common Rule.
Okay.
The Common Rule by Justin Whitmel Earley will also be linked in the show notes as well. That's all we got for this time, guys. It's been great. Until next time, peace.
Bye, y'all.